Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar hosted by GemFind and Accessiby. My name is Sarah Ukoric and I'm the Director of Client Relations here at GemFind and will be moderating today. If you have any questions, we will take them at the end of the presentation or you can drop them in the chat at any time. Our topic today is how to make your jewelry store's website ADA compliant and avoid lawsuits. We are joined by GemFind's founder and CEO, Alex Fetinet. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you.
And also Accessiby's Partner Success Manager, Michael Lombardo. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I would like to turn it over now to Alex. He will get started with an introduction. Then we will walk through Michael's presentation and a demo as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. We're glad to have you and we appreciate your time. So the reason we're having this webinar because over the past few years, obviously there has been a lot of talk about ADA compliancy. And a lot of the larger companies have been served with a lawsuit, as well as a lot of smaller clients and jewelry stores specifically. We, unfortunately, few of our clients have also been served. A lot of the website development company, we're not just we don't have the skill set, unfortunately, and there's not enough information for us, and it would take us a long time to really make a website compliant. So there are third-party applications that really do this for a fee, but obviously it avoids the lawsuits and also it makes the website more ADA compliant. Over the past several years, a lot of the larger companies have been sued. Companies like Target, Netflix, Amazon even, Domino's, CVS, Five Guys Burger, DoorDash. So even the bigger companies do not avoid, obviously they can't be immune of that. So there are unfortunately some attorneys that look for loopholes in the law and they try to make a few bucks. Usually they try to go after the bigger companies because they can make more money, but also a lot of the smaller businesses are being served with this lawsuit. And unfortunately, because it's being served through federal law, federal courts, it makes you and kind of forces you to retain an attorney. And obviously retain an attorney, just talking to them from the get-go, it's going to cost $3,000 to $5,000, as you know. So I had asked one of our great clients who's been a great friend and a client for many, many years, probably 15, 16 years, Jeff Post from Gem Platinum, to join us. Unfortunately, he was the first client actually that was served with this lawsuit, I think 3 or 4 years ago. We were not aware of that at all at that time. It was very new. He brought it to our attention. We had a lot of discussions. And Jeffrey, maybe if you don't mind kind of sharing your story, I would really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Alex. Thanks you for having me. Basically, what happened was all of a sudden one morning I'm sitting at my desk, the mail comes in, it's not registered, it's not certified, 3 identical envelopes about 3/4 of an inch thick. Each one identical inside, claiming a suit against Jay Schliff and Son, our parent company, and Gem Platinum regarding their website not being compliant with ADA. So, I mean, I know what ADA actually is all about, not the specifics, and I couldn't understand why it would have anything to do with my website. I'm saying a blind man can't see the pictures. You can't touch anything. You can't see the prices. So what do they mean? So I asked a couple of attorney friends of mine. They gave me some go this way, go that way. Actually, the best advice I had gotten was from JVC, and they gave me a list of companies. Unfortunately, Michael, your company wasn't on that small list of people who could help in this arena, and I did choose somebody else, and they understood exactly what was going on. They understood who the guy was that was suing me, and they actually brought up about 390 lawsuits that this one guy through one law firm has been put out against non-compliance of the ADA. So basically, they act like ambulance chasers. And, you know, they'll try to get 500, they'll try to get 5,000, depends on how big the company is. And I refuse to go down that road. So when I found the company that helped me, and I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I don't recall the name of the company, but Michael, you probably know, it's, you know, is in the same field. And so I spoke with them, and basically all they needed from me, besides a nominal amount of money, was access to the backside of my website. And they went in and put in the code, and it changed everything in order to bring it up to compliance, which meant that somebody who has a eyesight problem, they can change the font, the size, the color. Each one now has Audible reading off of what the descriptions of the pieces are and the prices. So that's what they're really looking for as far as compliance. I think it's really, really important, not for people like me necessarily, because I don't sell to the public. My information is really for the retailers to contact me. But I think it's really, really important to that the retailer pay attention to this. And I think they should make a big deal about it, that they are compliant. You know, get a sticker, put it on your door. When you do this on your website, you'll get a little man in a blue circle that shows that you're compliant. And this company gets back to me, you know, about every 6 months, goes through everything, and if there are any changes to the laws that need to be addressed or anything that's going askew with my website, they just go right ahead and fix it. And they charge a nominal amount of service fee per year. And I have never heard back from the company that sued me.
That's great.
So I, you know, basically it's out of sight, out of mind right now. And I know that my website is compliant. And when I say that it was nominal, I think the whole effort, including that three or 4 years of service, was less than $1,000. It might be a little bit more today. But these people were really, really, it made my life so simple. I didn't have to do a thing except send them a couple of bucks. And it was over done with.
Jeff, did you have to get an attorney to kind of respond to the lawsuit? I know you had some. No, okay, good.
I asked a friend of mine who's a lawyer what I should do, and he says, just send it back a letter. It says we'll be compliant within X amount of time, and that's all I did. Never heard from them again.
That's great. Yeah, now, unfortunately nowadays, once they serve, I mean, we had a few clients that did that. I think there are more loopholes that they found, but they are serving in federal courts, and you have to retain an attorney to even reply to that. So that was the experience.
You know, my lawsuits were actually filed in I can't remember, it was Nassau County and Suffolk County in the state of New York. It was not a federal suit.
That's Now they've started doing that on a federal. That's the big problem.
And I bet you it's more so for the people who are doing B2C, and that they're crossing state lines. So it becomes a federal issue.
Exactly, and which obviously most retailers do, and they want to sell outside of those states.
They want to sell wherever they can make a sale.
Exactly. So yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Jeff, for sharing your story with us. And again, a lot of the retailers, unfortunately, that we talk to, they just, and I get that, they just see that as an expense, but unfortunately, what they don't realize is when they are served, and no one is immune to this, unfortunately.
Nope.
No one is immune. So they could do that to anyone at any time. We even had, you know, our own website to be an ADA compliant, just because, again, I personally don't want to get lawsuits by some ambulance chaser attorney and go through that process. So Michael, please, maybe you can share your solution. You can tell us how you guys can help and what your experience has been. And
absolutely. First of all, thanks for sharing that story. It's funny because I hear this story a lot. A lot of times these people are coming to me. Some of them, it's a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion. They want to be accessible for as many people as they can. But most of the time it is that they do get that demand letter, that lawsuit, and they end up spending those lawyer fees and everything else to actually make the site compliant. So basically the question first off is, what is accessibility and compliance and all this, and what are these guidelines that everyone's following? Right now, the current standard, the whole acronym is the WCAG. It's at the 2.1 AA level. This is the global standard for website accessibility. Whether you're in the US, the UK, Canada. Canada's actually a little more stringent than the US in this, and the UK is coming out with some new laws slated for 2025. But this is the global standard, namely referring to people who are blind, motor impaired, who have epilepsy, color blindness, and need assistive technology in order to access the internet. And there have been just so many demand letters and lawsuits on and on about this. It's on an exponential increase. Typically, they settle out of court. But once they settle, they still actually need to make their site compliant. So you are going to pay those lawyer fees and settle. And after all that, you're still going to have to pay to make your site compliant. And it's interesting because, it's only 10 to 15 law firms that are sending these demand letters out by the fistful and just seeing what sticks. So there are a bunch of solutions out right now. The big one, you mentioned that your case was 3 years ago. That was around the time we were actually being introduced as an AI solution. The big ones were manual, actually. People, as you mentioned, going in the back end, changing every line of code to make it all accessible, and then continuously every once in a while having to go back in, change it all again to keep it up to those standards. If you add a new button, a new image has to be labeled and tagged. So everything falls in line with that guidebook. There's a bunch of free and low-cost plugins that do exist. However, this is why we created Accessibility as an AI solution to take care of all this. We are the first one to be doing this to bring you up to that WCAG compliance. We actually scan the site every 24 hours to keep it at that standard. So whether the litigation updates, the legislation updates, or the site itself will be able to stay compliant. Developed side by side with people with disabilities and experts in assistive technology. We actually have several blind coders that code on our staff. They code by Braille boards, so we're constantly being user tested. And this is just a shout out in the media for some of our funding rounds. VentureBeast, DigitalOcean, Forbes, our founders were named in the 30 under 30. So we kind of are exploding at the seams right now. We just closed a funding round for 58 million. The one here says 28 million. We just closed one for 58 million. So we're rapidly expanding. We just opened a whole new office and new floors in New York. This is actually a little out of date. We're approaching 200,000 sites at the moment. Avon, BMW, GoPro, Energizer, Tiffany's, Patek Philippe, all of them came to us. We've any of these individuals, including legal institutions like the Florida Bar Association, the Miami State Attorney Office, they all purchased the exact same solution that we're talking about now. Over 4,000 of them came to our doorstep with papers already served. Given the time, we've either fixed or completely eliminated those fees and everything associated with them, removing the threat entirely. First thing that we do in regards to that is provide the accessibility statement. This is kind of the nuts and bolts. This is what's being required by all these legislators today, kind of like how we used to be the privacy policy, the cookie policy. This is following the exact same trend and what's next in line for it, which is that statement saying what's been done to a site to make it compliant, how to report issues if anything is found, essentially saying how this site meets that WCAG standard. And we do include litigation support with all of our licenses. This has a compliance audit, an overview, screenshots of testing tools, scanning tools, suggested responses to lawyers, a failures request master, which is essentially a screen grab describing elements in question, and more dependent on the situation. No one's ever been successfully sued while having us on their site. The installation, it's a single line of code. It takes up to 48 hours to completely crawl the site. In that time frame, you'll get your email saying, hey, congrats, you are now ADA compliant. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that 24-hour process kicks in. It'll continuously scan the site for any changes made to it. So I can go into a demo now so you guys can check this the AI out live. Here is a demo site that I have. Ignore how many tabs I have open, but you can see here it is popped up. Here it's brown. Of course, it doesn't need to be brown. It can match the design and color scheme of the website. This can also be hidden in the footer if you don't want an extra floating icon on your site. And you can see there are quite a few adjustments here. I won't go over all of them for you, but adjusting text, contrast, saturation. These are a lot of the front-end adjustments. But the most commonly used adjustments we made into profiles that you see at the top here. So we have a flashing GIF or GIF. I get yelled at however I say it. I could turn on seizure safe profile. This not only reduces all the colors and saturations, but it also stops and freezes all those moving images. We also had a bar up here, a scroll bar that was going along that it's paused, and I can resume that if I want. Visually impaired, scale it up by 100%. See, make the text up here more legible, adding a rating mask to the site, as well as highlighting links and titles. And again, these are a lot of the front end workings that are making the site accessible, but this is only about 20% of that guidebook that I mentioned. The real heavy lifting is that back end for keyboard navigation and screen reader. So I could reset my settings here. This is assuming, I just came to the site for the very first time. Someone who's using a keyboard navigation doesn't have the dexterity to use a mouse. They can simply start tabbing through the site. So it makes it so I can navigate to a certain section of the site or start scrolling through all the elements. I'm not going to get caught up on the drop-down box. I can trigger the scroll bar, activate a pop-up, raise the focus into the pop-up, change the quantity, exit out, and keep going. And navigating this is one of the largest difficulties that a lot of these solutions do have, which Accessibility does excel in remediating to get through the whole site there. And for the screen reader itself, if I wanted to inspect one of these elements, at the moment, there are no tags on this site. So all these things, someone comes here with a screen reader, you could see the 0 there. It would probably just read button, icon, image, and then keep going. That's what the screen reader would dictate. As soon as I turn it on my end, sorry for that. You saw the code change right there. And now that 0 turned into extra sale, 30% off, shop now, white flowers and a brown vase. And you can see the image that it was just describing, the white flowers in the brown vase. And that's what the screen reader will dictate. So it gets that extra sale text that's embedded in the image. You can see that is embedded. And we'll be able to go through all the elements, describing them, even for, let's say, a star rating system. It's able to put in the 4 to 5 rating. So it's able to say, this is a button, this is a rating system, and be able to dictate the appropriate information for the individual screen reader. And this typically goes at the around the body tag of the site, the closing body tag. So at the end of the day, it's not going to affect your site speed or performance in any way. And your site will be able to run naturally, and it will continuously be scanned and up to date with that AI. That's most of what I had for you. I could show you our pricing page really quick. This is our page, so you could see that it is $490 for the year. Currently, through GemFind's personal link, we are going to be offering 1 extra month on top of any yearly purchase that you guys make. So if you guys want to make that purchase through that link, we will be giving you an extra month through this webinar.
Great, thank you, Michael. I did just drop that link into the chat, and everybody that registered for this webinar will get that link via email as well. And is there any questions for Michael? Alex, did you have any comments?
I do.
I have one comment. I just want to let you know, Alex, any of your clients want to reach out to me via email, jeffp@gemplat.com. I'm more than happy to entertain any questions. Michael, pleasure listening to you. Great stuff.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for joining.
Appreciate it,
We
Jeff.
appreciate it.
I have
good luck.
Thank you. I have one question, Michael, for you. Something that has come up. I understand that you guys have an attorney, or you have attorneys basically that kind of defend in case you have the widget installed, and if the client gets sued, do you have a facility? Do you have attorneys to respond to these lawsuits?
We do have those recommended responses for lawyers. We're actually partnered with one of the biggest, I think it is actually the biggest defense attorney for all this website accessibility, which we do recommend to all of our clients. But as I mentioned earlier, we include litigation support with all of our licenses. Yeah, absolutely. And none of our clients have been successfully sued with it on their site.
Got it. So
That's huge.
if someone has the widget your attorneys will protect them against any sort of lawsuits. They respond to the lawsuit, whatever they need to do with, communicating with with the attorneys, whatever. What if somebody gets sued? They don't have your solution yet, but they say, okay, I don't have the solution. I just got served, and then they retain your services.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot. That's kind of location specific. So New York, California, Florida, Texas, those are the really hard hit states at the moment. They are, very litigious when it comes to website accessibility. And it also depends on what course of when you are engaging with these lawyers. So typically what happens is they present that statement of accessibility statement saying, hey, you know what, the site's resolved and it's compliant now. It usually goes away after the fact. Again, it kind of depends what stage you're in. Once you come to us, if you've just received those litigation papers and then you come immediately to us, typically that is then resolved and the threat is removed.
So as soon as they get served, your advice is reach out to you guys, get basically the ADA compliance on the website. You will be able to at least respond to that, to the lawsuit. Your attorneys would be able to respond to the lawsuit, or is that still fall on the shoulder of our clients to communicate? Do they have to still retain attorneys and then respond to that lawsuit?
Yeah, right now, that is on that the onus is on the client. As I mentioned, we do suggest more than not just the attorneys that we are associated with, but everything that's included in the litigation support. Typically, it never goes past this point. There have been one-offs and individual cases where they've gone to certain extents where they haven't contacted us. They've gone back and forth, and they're practically at the settlement stage by the time we're in touch. So again, it is a little dependent on how far they get with us. But that litigation support is what protects those sites to the nth degree.
Excellent. Good to know.
Yeah,
Because
that's
usually when our clients reach us, it's kind of late because they've already been served, unfortunately, with the lawsuit, or they're already in negotiation and they're trying to find a solution. And I do hope that this webinar has really answered a lot of questions, and it is an eye-opener, especially with Jeffrey and having a B2B website, non-e-commerce. And again, he was sued, I think, 3 years ago, unfortunately. But yeah, it would be great for more and more really retailers to look at this a little bit more seriously, because it's an investment, but they're definitely avoiding a big lawsuits and big headache in the future.
It's the least expensive path.
100%, absolutely. So,
Yes.
Any other questions, Sarah? Did you see?
I don't see anybody else having a question. There are no hands raised and there is nothing in the chat. So if there are no questions, we will just follow up with the recording as well as the link via email. And thank you all for being here today. Michael, for providing that great presentation. We really appreciate it. And Jeffrey, for sharing your experience.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then just one last comment, that the installation and the implementation on websites, we do it for a lot of our clients. There is no charge, doesn't take a long time, because accessibility just makes it so much easier. It's just a line of code basically that we need to incorporate into the HTML.
Right.
So
yes, our support team is super hands-on with getting that completed for our clients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Stay
afternoon.
well, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.